With me is the President of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly and also the Maldivian Foreign Minister, other hat he wears. So welcome to WION and welcome to India. My first question to you is, how has the last 1 year been for you as the President of the General Assembly? And if you can list out the key highlights of your presidency, the Presidency of Hope.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. It's always good to see you. I came promising a presidency of hope. I came at a time when the world was reeling in death, despair and devastation during COVID-19. My theme of hope was based on 5 rays of hope: recovering from COVID-19 pandemic, rebuilding sustainably, respecting the rights of all, responding to the needs of the planet, and reforming the United Nations. Because I believed that recovering from COVID-19 has to be our first and foremost effort, and there is no other way than to recover from COVID-19 pandemic other than achieving vaccine equity and vaccinating the world. I convened a high-level meeting on 19th of February this year to bring countries together, to galvanize the international community on vaccine equity, on rebuilding sustainably. Achieving the SDGs has been a challenge even before COVID-19 pandemic. For small countries and the LDCs and the LLDCs, the meager resources that were allocated to achieve the SDGs had to be channeled to confront the pandemic. So we were completely off track in many parts of the world on achieving SDGs. We have to use this as an opportunity to restart, make the decade of action into a decade of recovery so that we can by 2030 achieve as much as possible. On respecting the rights of all, human rights has to be at the core of everything we do. And I wanted to bring this important theme, one of the fundamentals of the foundation of the United Nations, to the center so that we will be able to build around it. Never let human rights be relegated to the periphery. Responding to the needs of the planet. We see what is happening to the planet. We see how badly the environment is degrading, climate change is affecting countries. We are seeing the glaciers melting. We see the desert expanding, the forest fires raging. We see storms intensifying and sea level rising. So we need to unite in front of this and bring the whole conversation in one voice. And that is why I convened in July this year a moment for nature, requesting the international community, world leaders to take a moment for nature. Think about how we can save this planet of ours to future generations.
So a lot of issues you basically focused on, but perhaps your presidency was also very challenging because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. How did that incident, perhaps a geopolitical moment, perhaps in a lifetime, in fact impacted your presidency, and you basically took initiatives so that all the sides can come together, because we saw a very divided UNGA, the West versus Russia, and of course China as well.
It was a challenging time because when one of the P5, the permanent 5 members, are involved in a conflict, it is clear that the Security Council will not be functioning as it is supposed to under the Charter of the United Nations. What we were able to prove at the United Nations is that the system is established. The system for multilateralism does work, because at the United Nations, when the Security Council fails to address an international peace and security issue consistently, either the Security Council or the membership has the right to bring that to the attention of the General Assembly, where there is no veto, where every country has one vote. And that is brought in under the Uniting for Peace resolution. Once that special emergency session is convened, the powers of the Security Council is transferred to the General Assembly, including the power of enforcement, Chapter 7. And that is what we are in today. I'm presiding over a special emergency session which has been convened by the request of the Security Council after 40 years. We have seen the world unite, 143 countries supporting the resolution that was submitted. So we saw the conscience of the international community speak clearly and loudly.
This also shows a very defunct United Nations at a time when the world has changed. Countries like India are not members of the Security Council. What initiatives you took when it comes to reforms, or perhaps making sure that the reform process can be hastened?
Well, the reform process of the Security Council is a process that has been going on for the last 14 years. The IGN, or the Intergovernmental Negotiating Process, is continuing. During this year, for the first time, we were able to have more meetings. We were able to bring more consensus into the very diverse issues that have been on the table. We have to be mindful that we are talking about the 193 countries coming together, including the 5 permanent members, whose mandates that have been given in the Charter, we are talking about giving to others or taking it away. So it will continue to be in a long process. However, I have urged to member states, I have appealed to the member states that if we want the United Nations to be regarded credible, we will have to make sure that we become relevant to the current geopolitical realities of the day. And we have to change the composition of the Security Council in the way that it functions.
Sir, but coming back to my first question, personally for you, what was perhaps the key focus area? Youth is something that you are close to, and you have taken several initiatives, and women as well. I mean, back home in Maldives, you have taken initiatives regarding women empowerment, especially in the foreign ministry. So any initiatives at the General Assembly or the UN regarding any personal initiatives you liked?
Well, gender equality is one of my priorities. I made sure that my office at the General Assembly, the office of the President of the General Assembly, is gender balanced, including at the very senior level in the cabinet. Also, I made a pledge that I will not attend any panel that is not gender balanced, a pledge that I have kept. I've also made sure that I meet women and girls during all my travels to understand their views, understand their challenges, but also to convey a message to them that together we can actually achieve it. If business as usual is maintained, it would take 138 years for gender parity to be achieved. Now that is unacceptable. We have to make positive interventions. We have to make sure that we not only talk about it, but make complete positive interventions so that it will be changed. Having more women around the table at decision-making level in politics and in the economy are essential. I convened a high-level meeting on violence against women in politics, because the violence against women in politics is different from the harassment and bullying that male politicians get. And we need to address this issue. We have to make the workplace more friendly and welcoming for women co-workers. For example, at the United Nations, I remember in 2019, when Prime Minister Ardern of New Zealand came to the General Assembly, she had to leave the General Assembly hall every 2 hours because she was carrying a baby and she had to feed. We did not have the facilities for that. I've been successful in establishing lactation rooms at the United Nations. Currently, we have 9 rooms established under the guardianship of New Zealand and El Salvador, and one of them next to the General Assembly Hall itself. We have to mainstream this, not only establish the rooms, but also talk about it so it is established in other parts of the world as well. The whole question of highlighting the fact that women do not yet have equal opportunity has to be highlighted time and time again. We are talking about the pandemic, for example. Yes, there was death, devastation, and depression. But the one topic that we do not talk about is the violence against women and vulnerable groups that went around when countries went into lockdown. We have to talk about it. We have to find solutions to it. It is an issue that neither you or me can avoid, because end of the day, it's our mothers, it's our sisters, our children.
What brings you here to Delhi? I mean, India was a country that was very supportive of your presidency. In Delhi, you had a number of meetings. If you can just list out what was the key outcome of these meetings in Delhi.
India was the first country to come out and support my presidency when my candidature was declared. India played a very important role in backing my presidency. The support that India has given in the form of my chef de cabinet, for example, a distinguished diplomat from India, Ambassador Naidu, has been outstanding. He made sure that the fort is maintained and let me work with the member states. I wanted to come here as my presidency is coming to an end, to express my gratitude to the cooperation and commitment they have given to the Presidency of Hope, but more importantly to mention how appreciative the United Nations is for the outstanding commitment that India has for multilateralism. India is a member of the Security Council. India continues to highlight many of these cherished principles at the United Nations. I also met the UN country team here who are doing outstanding work in reaching out to the people of India and assisting in the development work that the government is doing.
So how do you see the geopolitical flashpoints? We've spoken about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but we have also seen a very aggressive China. We saw the Taiwan Strait crisis. So how do you see these developments as, and what, as the president, you will suggest to the global community?
Our total commitment to multilateralism, peaceful settlement of disputes, cherish the United Nations Charter, because the whole point of creating this organization, the United Nations, bringing countries together, is to avoid conflict, avoid war, and peaceful settlement of disputes. So wherever you are, whatever dispute you have to be committed to bringing that dispute to the United Nations and to peaceful resolution through the multilateral legal system.
Now, asking you questions as the Foreign Minister of Maldives, how do you see the relationship between the two countries? We saw the President of Maldives here in India. We have seen a lot of engagement, infrastructure, defense as well, but people-to-people relationship as well. If you can just perhaps give a broader highlight of this relationship.
Outstanding. That is how I would describe the relationship between the Maldives and India. It is outstanding. Since President Saleh took office on 17th of November 2018, where Prime Minister Modi himself was personally present, the relationship has skyrocketed. President Saleh was here in New Delhi on 18th of December, month to the date of him taking office. And Prime Minister Modi, after he won the second term, Maldives was the first country he visited. And they have met so many times. The cooperation and the understanding at the leadership level is excellent. And that sets the agenda for us who have to deliver. And taking into consideration the number of agreements that have been signed, the number of bilateral projects that are ongoing, the number of visits that have taken place, one word that would describe the relationship is outstanding.
Outstanding relationship, but we have also seen elements in Maldives taking part in propaganda, anti-India propaganda, the India out propaganda which is being run perhaps by the former president. How do you see it as, and do you think that that can be curtailed, or does it has a foreign hand backing these propaganda programs in the Maldives?
It's a program of propaganda being pushed by a group of people who has nothing to offer to the people of Maldives. No economic agenda, no development agenda, no social agenda. They have nothing. So they have to come up with something. And that is attacking our best friend and the closest ally. It's just like shooting in your own foot.
We also are witnessing a heating up of perhaps the Indian Ocean with the increased Chinese presence. We saw the Chinese spy ship coming to Sri Lanka. How do you see the increased Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean, and how does it impact Maldives?
For the Maldives, it's very simple. A stable Maldives is essential for stability and prosperity in the Indian Ocean. And a stable and prosperous Indian Ocean is essential for prosperity and stability in the Maldives. So we will do everything. We'll work with everyone to maintain stability, peace, and prosperity in the Indian Ocean.
So my last question to you is, we saw the turmoil in Sri Lanka and the then president of Sri Lanka, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, visiting Maldives. That was his first stop. If you can just tell us, to our viewers, why Maldives was the first stop. I mean, what was the reason, and any political call being taken behind this visit before he visited Singapore?
Obviously, a question that you will have to ask President Rajapaksa. I would not have why he chose Maldives as his first stop.
Okay, sir. Pleasure having you here in Delhi and speaking to WION on several subjects, whether it's the presidency or whether it's the relationship. And perhaps we'll see you more as the Foreign Minister of Maldives back here in Delhi. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much. Definitely, I will be coming back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.